Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Cheryl. Cheryl, thank you once again for coming and delegating before council. Has there been any changes to the park design since the minutes of settlement have been approved?
Not that I'm aware of.
So the design that we have, through you, Mr. Chair, so the design we have before us tonight has already been approved by the minutes of settlement.
I think I would say yes, but I would defer to Mr. Downey, who is charged with bringing forward the park design that was the product of the consultation that was held back in April.
Thank you. And just one more question through you, Mr. Chair. If council wishes to make any changes, would Highland Gate Development Inc. be open to discussing any changes that this council would wish?
We'll always be open to discussing modifications that are within the scope of the minutes of settlement. I think you've heard from others that there is a concern about opening up those minutes, but I think there's some latitude in them. Clearly, staff were given the authority to finalize the details of the plan.
Thank you. So just as a follow-up, through Mr. Chair, so no major changes?
I guess it would be fair to say that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've heard time and time again that we don't have the authority, so quite frankly, I'm looking at the motion that's in front of us, and it's asking for us to approve something that's already been approved. We've already heard tonight that this design was already approved within the minutes of settlement, so therefore, if we don't have the authority to oppose this, then in essence, is this not ultra vires? Because we do not have that authority.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it does seem like it would be that the council, if the other parties are not willing to negotiate any amendments to the minutes of settlement, that council can still deal with the design, I guess, but it does if this is specifically just about the lighting, council cannot do it and make any amendments in that regard.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure how you'd like to proceed on this. I mean, I have issues that I'd like to speak to. I'm not comfortable with certain elements within the plan, but we're constantly hearing that we can't be approving it. I mean, we can't be opposing it, and we can't open up the minutes of settlement. And considering this has already been approved already, I just feel that how can we approve something a second time when it's already been approved? So I don't know how you want to proceed on this. I mean, personally, I think that we should just be receiving this for information, and we can make comments, and if any councillor wishes to make an amendment, then that would be fine. So I would actually ask for the second clause to be stricken from the motion.
Thank you, councillor. I only half agree with you. I think there are some items in here that do require council's approval. So as we've spoken, the park benches and the exercise equipment are things that fall outside of the scope. So so those do require council approval, but I think that if we wanted to endorse the minutes of settlement and approve the items that require the approval, that would be a way to move forward. Or are we really only talking about those two items that aren't included in the minutes of settlement?
So Mr. Chair, if I may, if you're asking us to also put on and endorse the minutes of settlement, I might remind you that there's three of us at this table that voted against the minutes of settlement. So therefore, I mean, I wouldn't be in favor of endorsing the minutes of settlement, because therefore I'd be in essence changing my vote on what I originally voted for those minutes of settlement.
So I am at the pleasure of committee here tonight. I think to endorse a council decision doesn't mean that you endorse the initial decision. It means that you endorse that council made a decision. Through you to the clerk or to Mr. Nadarozny or to Mr. Downey, if we simply just receive the report and not approve anything, what's the intended, how would we proceed at that point? Mr. Downey.
To you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the staff recommendation, historically, staff have always received council approval on any park design, particularly when it's adjacent to existing residential properties. So Mavernack Park is a good example. When we came forward, council was asked to approve a conceptual design. This conceptual design includes elements that are within the minutes of settlement, but also outside of the minutes of settlement. So we are asking council to approve the design with the elements that they've already approved, plus any elements that we've added to the park, such as the meditation circle, the park benches and equipment, and the fitness equipment. So that's the reason that we are looking for a council approval on the complete park design, so that we can then give direction to the developer's consultant to proceed with detailed design and costing of the park.
Ms. Desario, did you have anything else to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, it's exactly how Mr. Downey has mentioned.
Mr. Chair, if I may, once again, if for me, I'd personally feel more comfortable if we strike the second clause, and if council wishes to make an amendment to speak to those specific items that we can speak to, then we can go from there. But to say that we're approving the whole plan, once again, it's been approved already by the minutes of settlement. So why are we doing it again?
I think it's been stated that we're doing it to encompass all of the new items. If here's the compromise I'll recommend. I'll call them separately. And if it doesn't pass, at that point, we'll put in on an amendment for those other two items that are not in the minutes of settlement. Does that work?
I'm at the pleasure of the chair.
Sounds good. Councillor Humphreys.
Oh, yeah, do I still have time? Do I still have time?
You do, yes.
Okay, well then I'd still like to have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think everyone's aware that I was against the minutes of settlement, and I don't mind some of the features within the concept. Mayor Dobb mentions that it was unfortunate that it went to the Trails Committee after the minutes of settlement, and they really didn't have the authority to make any changes. Well, then I would argue, then what was the point of the public open house? Because that was after the minutes of settlement. And therefore, if we were going to get comments from residents saying what they would like to see or what changes they would like, meanwhile, that's after the minutes of settlement, and therefore they don't have the authority to make any of those changes. And so therefore, maybe that was a bit of a, honestly, I don't see what the need was of having that open house. Maybe it was stated wrong of what the purpose of that open house was. But right now when I look at it, it seems it was pointless to have that open house at that time, because it just seems like we're not taking into account what those residents said at that open house. Some of the things that I do have concerns with, I definitely have concerns with the lighting, as it's stated within our master trails plan, and we stated at our trails committee. It doesn't meet our trails plan. And so therefore, I am absolutely against any lighting. Now, we could possibly look at ways at mitigating it and softening it. Maybe there's different ways that we can become creative. But ultimately, I am opposed to it. And if, as was stated by the chair, we're going to leave it as it is, and we're going to call it separately. And if we leave it all in as it is, I will be voting against the second clause to approve the conceptual design, because I voted against it the first time within the minutes of settlement. And so therefore, I will vote against it again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I'm not in agreement with the lighting, and I'm strongly opposed to the lighting being there, as the residents have, I do understand that we're basically bound and tied by the minutes of settlement, and that's why I will state one more time that I feel that this motion is out of order. And I appreciate it. I just like to state that again, that we've heard the conversation around the table, and in essence, we're hearing is we have no choice. Our choice is either we approve this or we get sued. So in essence, we have no choice because we're bound by our duty as a council.
Something new to the discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, one sec. We are bound as a council in our duty to defend this town and bring no harm to this town. And so therefore, you're asking us to go against our duty as a council. Do you see where I'm going with this? Like this motion should not be in order. But saying that, I'm fine. I'll move away from the lighting because we've dealt with it ad nauseum, and we're not getting anywhere with it, and it's very frustrating. But the ones that we can deal with, the exercise stations, right now I'd like to put an amendment on the floor to remove the exercise stations from the design, since we have that authority. So I might as well put something forward that we have authority for.
Councillor Gartner seconding that. To the amendment. That we're removing the exercise equipment because we have the authority to do so. Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard loud and clear from many residents, and it's even in the report tonight, do not include these exercise stations. We have them in Shepherd's Bush. They're not utilized. They're not used. They're used very rarely. And to me, it's just something that we're going to put in, and it's going to cause the taxpayers in future years maintenance costs. So to me, no one wants them. They don't get used. Let's remove them.
Those opposed? That carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will delve back into the lighting just for one sec, but it is something new through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, has there been a cost analysis done as far as how much the lighting will cost in future years on a yearly basis as far as hydro maintenance? Do we have such a figure, or do we have something that can be kind of an estimate?
So I do think that's out of order, but Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, actually that question was asked at the public meeting, and our response was we haven't done those costs yet. Once we get into detailed design, we'll have a better idea of exactly how many fixtures we're talking about, and then we have a better idea from a maintenance perspective what we'd be talking about. So that information will be provided to us, or we'll be able to provide you with that information once we have a detailed design. So I can't answer that question at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. And I just kind of, everyone's touched about it here at the table. We've heard the discussion and comments from Mr. Downey as far as our moving forward within our Trails Master Plan. So I just want to state, as the chair of the Trails Committee, I am quite confident to be able to say at this table that the committee as a whole is not looking to move forward with lighting our trails. If that's a report coming from staff, so be it. If this council wishes to move forward with that, so be it. But as a committee, I can state that as they voted down unanimously to have lighting within this design, they are not in favor of incorporating lighting in any of our trails moving forward. So I just wanted to clearly get that out there for everyone to understand. And I just have one comment, Mr. Chair, if you allow me just a little leeway. I know we've been going off topic. This whole process has been a struggle for this council, and I think moving forward for everyone, for the residents. And I'll just say that I'm glad that the province has made changes for Bill 139.
Humphreys. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, please allow